My name is Dr. Joan Reed, Dean for Diversity and Community Partnership at Harvard Medical School. I actually lead the Office for Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Partnership, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar, Harvard-affiliated Obstetrics and Gynecology Residency Programs. The mission of our office, DICP, Office for Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Partnership, is to advance diversity, inclusion, in health, biomedical, behavioral, and STEM fields that builds individual and institutional capacity to achieve excellence, foster innovation, and ensure equity in health locally, nationally, and globally. Today's program is a part of the DICP Visiting Clerkship Program. For 30 years, VCP has been a model of excellence, offering outstanding medical students, particularly those from groups underrepresented in medicine, an opportunity to participate in externships at HMS, Harvard Medical School, and Harvard Medical School affiliated hospitals. Since inception, more than 1,500 students have completed VCP. Unfortunately, in this academic year, VCP has been drastically impacted by COVID-19. We recognize that there is a lot of uncertainty about what is going to happen in this next application cycle for residency, and that many students have expressed concern about what the future is going to hold. It is with this in mind that we are hosting a series of webinars to bring the members of our HMS residency programs together with medical students to share ideas, provide support, and address questions on transitioning to the next stage of medical training. These webinars provide an opportunity to discuss the application process, address questions from students regarding away rotations, as well as any other concerns that students might have. This is the fifth in the webinar series around residency programs at Harvard Medical School. And you're going to be joined today by program directors and resident representatives from our two Harvard-affiliated OBGYN residency programs. I'd now like to introduce Dr. Alden Landry, who's going to be the moderator for today's program. He is an emergency medicine physician at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center and an assistant dean within the DICP office. Dr. Landry?
Thank you, Dr. Reed, and thank you to all the students who are joining us for our presentation today. Just to reiterate what Dr. Reed said, we're excited to have you and to host you here as a part of our program and to introduce you to our OBGYN residency programs here affiliated with Harvard University. It's unfortunate that we can't have the students here on campus this VCP season due to COVID. That being said, we wanted to make sure we continue to engage you all as much as possible. I just want to give you a couple housekeeping notes. The chat function in our conversation is disabled. However, if you want to ask a question, you can feel free to put that in the Q&A section, and we will try and get to as many questions as possible. All of your lines are muted. And information about our webinars will be posted online shortly afterwards. And so if you are looking to review this or share it with one of your colleagues, we hope to have the webinar up by the end of the week on our website so you can review. Next slide. So I want to introduce the individuals who you're going to be hearing from over the course of our 1.5 hour meeting. I'm going to introduce the speakers. We have both residents as well as faculty who are joining us today. First, I'll introduce Dr. Adeline Boatin. She's an assistant professor of OBGYN at Harvard Medical School and director of global health at the MGH Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology. And she's also an associate faculty program director for the global surgery and social change at Harvard Medical School. You'll also hear from Dr. Huma Farid. She's the Associate Program Director for the OBGYN Residency Program at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, and she's an instructor of Obstetrics, Gynecology, and Reproductive Biology at Harvard Medical School. And last, you'll hear from Dr. Amy Stagg. She is the Residency Program Director for the combined Brigham and MGH OBGYN Residency Program, and she is also an Assistant Professor of Obstetrics, Gynecology, and Reproductive Biology at Harvard Medical School. So what we'd like to do first is make sure that you all have an understanding of our programs here at HMS. We have two OBGYN residency programs. And so I want to allow the program directors just to give you a quick overview of the programs that we have offered here. And then after that, we're going to jump right into question and answer. Next slide. So first, Dr. Farid is going to talk about the OBGYN residency program at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center.
Thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this webinar, and I appreciate all the effort that you've put into it. I'm very excited to be representing the BI OBGYN residency. You can advance to our next slide, please. And one more, perhaps, sorry. Thank you. The residency program is a place that lives by its mission of educating the next generation of leaders in the field of OBGYN. Our goal is to provide our residents with a breadth of educational experiences in the operating room, on L&D, in our community health clinics, and in our global health partnerships. At the heart of our residency, and what we really value, is our belief in providing compassionate and humanistic care for all of our patients. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Our Twitter handle, I'm not very proficient at Twitter, but that's our handle. Our residents are amazing, and I cannot say enough good things about the program. I'll turn it over to Dr. Stagg.
Welcome, everybody. I just want to thank all of the organizers for helping us showcase our residencies, and I just want to welcome all the students. It's going to be a very different year for both of us, but we're in this together, and I'm hoping this and other forums can really help students get through this process. But I want you to know, from a program director's standpoint, we are ready for a whole new process, and I want you to take comfort in the fact that we're here to support and help you. We know things are going to be different. They're going to be different for us and for you. Next slide. So I'm the residency program for the Brigham and Women's Hospital and Massachusetts General Hospital residency program. We're one of the bigger residency programs. We have 44 residents. And our two main hospitals are Brigham and Mass General, and we also go to Children's Hospital and a community hospital, Newton Wellesley. This is some highlights of our curriculum, just talking about it, some different rotations that we have. And what you'll see is that we're just a very busy clinical service. We have breadth and depth of every different type of experience in specialty and subspecialty rotations, a lot of research experience. And what I tell people looking at our program is that we have many, many opportunities for our residents. You know, it's just a wonderful big program, but yet it still has a nice family feel and is very supportive. The best part of our residency is really our residents, how they work together. And one of the things I would say about going through COVID and running a residency is what I see is just how much they're here to support each other, which is a huge part of why people come to our residency program. Next slide. Just to highlight a few wonderful things and some of our core, what is at the core of our residency. We have a very active residency wellness committee that has done a lot for our residents, and we have yearly retreats that we've done and many, many activities, and a lot of residents are very active, and we support all of their endeavors, both with time away and financially. We have a very active diversity and inclusion committee that is resident-led and has faculty mentors. We really take this very seriously in terms of the patients that we care for, our residency selection, and our goal is to create a residency culture in which every resident receives unbiased education and evaluation and support for his or her goals. And we work very hard to support this mission. We believe in something called a just culture, which is that every resident is intelligent and capable and cares about doing their best and wants to improve. So these are just some of the highlights of some of our core values that our residency holds. And again, I'm also happy to answer questions, and I look forward to discussing.
Wonderful. I want to say thank you to Dr. Farid and Dr. Stagg for introducing your programs. I think it was a great start to the discussion that we're going to have. And Dr. Stagg, you alluded to this in your opening comments, that this is going to be a different application cycle compared to prior. As a program director, what are your thoughts about how this program cycle is going to be different, and how you're preparing for it?
Yeah, so I think we're preparing for it nationally, in the sense that our two main national bodies, APCO and CREOG, which I'm involved with CREOG, is really preparing program directors to think about this cycle differently and what might be different. And the things that I have been thinking about with some of these discussions is, we know that a lot of students that will be looking at our programs have not done sub-Is or not able to. It's very, very important to us, OBGYN nationally, but to me as a program director, to create a fair process. So we understand that some students may not have been able to have certain experiences, and some have. And I would never want to disadvantage those students that have not had the ability to have those experiences. So that's going to be top on my list of things to be thinking about as I look at students. We know the letters could be different. We know that, you know, they may not be all from OBGYNs as they usually are, and that's going to be okay. We know that step scores are not necessarily going to be there. And so if not everybody has a step 2, then that can't really be used as a marker. Again, protecting a very fair process so everybody has the ability to kind of be looked at in this a similar fashion. And I see opportunities too. I mean, we definitely, everything's going to be virtual, but there's a lot of opportunities that we might have, like this forum, where we can connect with students in a different way, in order for us and the students to get to know each other. So I'm just looking at all the different opportunities in this new process that we might have to get to know each other. And also really, I want students to hear over and over that, you know, it's going to be okay. We're going to understand, both sides are really going to understand just how different it's going to be, but, you know, it's still going to be a wonderful process where we want to match the right student with the right program so that the students can reach their career goals.
Great, thank you for that. I think that's a good synopsis of what we're going to talk about during the course of this conversation. Everything from step scores to letters to personal statements to the interview process. And so I think you encompassed that discussion well in that question, or that reply. Dr. Farid, what are you doing as a program director to prepare yourself as well as everyone else on the residency team to be prepared for this application process?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to echo what Dr. Stagg has said, we know this is going to be completely novel for both ourselves and for the applicants who are applying. And, you know, everything virtual has never been done before. So we're really thinking about being very flexible in terms of how we structure things and what we do. We have really been utilizing APCO CREOG, which Dr. Stagg also referenced, as they've put on a seminar for best practices for virtual interviewing, which programs around the country, such as general surgery in some areas, have already implemented. And we're currently planning on how to best involve the faculty and the residents with virtual meet and greets, videos, and things like that to help applicants get to know us and to get to know our program, which really is one of the best parts of interview day, and which unfortunately we won't be able to mimic quite exactly as we have done in the past. And we're also going to be having multiple planning meetings to figure out what is the best way to really show our mission and our residents to the applicants.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, we have to do all of our prep work ahead of time to make sure that we are supportive and inclusive, and also figuring out ways to showcase not only the city of Boston, but our hospitals and the opportunities for our potential trainees. So it's interesting to hear the prep work that each program is doing going forward as we get ready for the interview season. Dr. Boatin, what are students saying to you about their concerns for this upcoming cycle? What are you hearing from the students that you mentor in this process?
I think are you talking about medical students, just to clarify, or
Right,
yeah,
medical students.
yeah. I think that part of the, for the few students that I have interacted with, it's getting to know the different institutions that they come across as well as they would in person, because as Dr. Farid alluded to, one of the things about interview day is that informal chit chat or meet and greet that is often a part of it. So that's definitely one of the concerns that have come up. I think some of the other things that I've heard are the sort of minimal opportunities or lost opportunities to actually rotate at different hospitals and get to be known and get to know hospitals because you're not able to do sub-internships as part of that. And I will say for that, there are a fair number of residents, certainly in our program, across programs, who don't do any sub-internships and end up at a program that is well matched for both the resident and the program. So I don't think that that's completely lost. I'd say those are the two big things that I've come across.
Great. And so hopefully those in the audience have an understanding of the direction that we're going to go with our discussion. But I want to bring out something that's important to many of those who are listening in and joining us on this webinar. And I want both of our program directors, both Amy and Huma, to talk about this. And I'll go to you first, Amy. What is your program doing to make sure that diversity, inclusion, and equity are integral in the program?
Yeah, so as I said before, we have a resident diversity and inclusion committee, and both my friends, Dr. Boatin and Dr. Weeks, as one of our residents, are a part of that, as many of our residents are. And we have many things that we're doing to kind of further the causes, both in our hospitals. So our working environment is a big thing that we're focusing on, but another huge focus is recruitment. And one of the new things that we're trying this year is having a resident member on our selection committee to help us with identifying applicants for interview. And we always have our residents involved on interview days. In addition, both of our hospitals have very active centers for diversity and inclusion that really help us a lot. So the person that runs our Center for Diversity and Inclusion at Brigham is actually in our own department, Dr. Nawal Noor. So she has been supporting a lot of our efforts and will continue to do so. And the Mass General Center for Diversity and Inclusion has really helped us with events during recruitment season and really helping applicants get to know our hospitals as well as our department. So this is a really high priority for us. It's a high priority for our chairs. It's a high priority for our faculty, and it's a high priority for the hospital's leadership. So we take it very seriously.
Great. And Huma?
Similar to Dr. Stagg, diversity is incredibly important to our program, and we pride ourselves in the fact that about a third of our residents are from underrepresented minorities. We believe that the patients who we serve, who are incredibly diverse, deserve to have reflections of themselves and the physicians who they seek care from. And so not only are we committed to seeking diversity in our residents, but also in our faculty. And we're committed to promoting diversity and inclusion through providing a space for discussion and inclusion, encouraging advocacy both in the faculty and among the residents, and having grand rounds dedicated to discussing issues related to microaggressions, discrimination, maternal mortality, and healthcare disparities. Again, this is extremely important to our department and our hospital. At the department level, we have our very own Diversity, Inclusion, and Advocacy Committee, which is comprised of faculty, staff, as well as residents. At the hospital level, we have a Graduate Medical Education Council on Diversity and Inclusion, which is actually chaired by two of our OBGYN faculty. And two of the founding house officers were from the OBGYN residents. And so this is an incredibly important issue for us. And the advocacy, we also have an advocacy chief at the resident level. So every year there is one of the chief residents who's chosen to be an advocacy chief. That chief works with both the department diversity, inclusion, and advocacy committee, as well as with the GME-wide, the Graduate Medical Education Hospital-wide Council, to promote how residents can get further involved in advocacy work. So for example, our residents have gone to the State House to discuss legislative issues relating to maternal health. They've met with Ayanna Pressley to further the cause of maternal mortality and look at healthcare disparities. And so we pride ourselves in the fact that we have resident-led advocacy that is being implemented on a hospital level as well.
Great. And sticking with you, Huma, can you talk about what students should be thinking about in confirming that OBGYN is their specialty of choice? I know most of the students who are with us are locked in and going to be applying, but there are on occasion students who come to us and they're considering multiple specialties, even this late in the process. And so any thoughts on what students should be thinking about and making sure that OBGYN is the right choice for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it can be a little challenging because of the fact that some people may not have done all of their rotations. But I know for me personally, when I started medical school, I was determined to become a psychiatrist, and clearly that's not what I am. I did my psychiatry rotation and did not like it and realized this is not for me. And I thought I'm never going to be an OBGYN, so I'll put that on towards the end of my third year. And by like January or February, I still had no idea what I was going to do. And I said, okay, well, I guess I'll just go through OB, get through that and figure out what I'm going to do. And on the third day of my OB rotation, when I was a third year med student, I had just completed a 24-hour call. And one of the attendings walked in and said that she needed first assist for a C-section. And we're all getting ready to sign out. And as many of you will discover, a peri-sign-out C-section is like everyone's least favorite thing, right? And so none of the residents volunteered, and the attending, I think, was getting desperate and said, I'll take anybody, even the medical student. And they all look at me and I'm like, okay, I'll go. I mean, I was not going to pass up the chance to be first assist. And so I assisted this attending who I actually became, who was one of my favorite attendings in residency. And at the end of that shift, like I had done 26 hours straight, I walked out of the OR feeling completely elated and not at all exhausted. And I thought to myself, this is the feeling that I want every single day, knowing that I'm going to work hard, but at the end of the day, I'm going to feel really happy about having worked so hard. And I think that, you know, not everybody may have that aha moment, and that's okay, but I think you need to do what you love. And we're all going to have moments, and residency is extremely challenging. No matter what residency you choose, you're going to have moments when you're really tired and when you wonder if it's worth it. And I think the answer that you want is yes, even though I'm really tired, this is absolutely worth it.
That's awesome. And I'm glad you had that career affirmation experience as a student. Amy, many students come to us as part of the visiting clerkship program. They do away rotations with us. That's how they get to know us. Unfortunately, students can't come. What should students be doing to start to do their research about programs and potentially show their interest in a program since the opportunities for away rotations aren't there?
Yeah, and it's wonderful to think about this question because I have met with students in the past, you know, just to go through this process with them when we've had visiting students, but I still think there's a lot that can be done without meeting in person. So first, the things that I tell students is before you even look at programs, think about your values, think about your goals. Think about what you want to do with your residency time and what are your priorities, and make that list before you look at programs at all. So once you have your list of priorities and goals and values, then every program can be looked at through that lens. What I tell students to do is start with the website of the residency program. Some are better than others, but it's a great informational place to start. And just really try to understand what are the rotations, what is the day-to-day going to look like, what are the values of that program, kind of just a snapshot of what this program might be like to be a resident. In this situation where we're going to have less interaction and we're trying to think about showing interest in the program, you could start to consider reaching out, I think, to residents, to faculty. One of the things I've noticed with students is they will reach out to programs and maybe they don't feel like there's other ways to reach out to other people in the department, but I actually think If you can find a way, a connection or something on the website, some information, or even just if there's one email and say, I'd like to connect with one of the residents, I think it's a great way to really learn about the program in a way that is different than if you connect with a program director. So that process is a really important process as you look at programs. And I think connecting with different people within, if you're really interested in a program, both residents, if you have any way to connect with students that might be there, faculty, then those are great ways to learn about and show interest in a program.
Great. And just continuing on with that discussion, Adeline, when students, we often talk about culture. What's the culture of the program? What's it like at that program? And so how can students learn about the culture of the program without being there in person? And can you just continue on with that discussion about reaching out to residents and faculty to learn a little bit more about the program, and maybe advice on filtering out good versus bad information? I know, unfortunately, a lot of people turn to places on social media, discussion boards for information, and they may actually not be a true representation of the program.
Yeah, I think, I mean, webinars such as this are probably a great example where you get to interact with faculty and residents from the program and ask questions. You know, I think one of the other ways one can get to know about a program is sort of to look at sort of the outputs of the program in some ways, especially in this COVID era. And so, although you may not be able to, and in some ways, because of how everything has become virtual, students from across the country and indeed all across the world have more access to some of those outputs. And so I think about some of the presentations that faculties might be given, different webinars, different discussions that might be online. And that's going to take a little bit of legwork on the part of the students to sort of try and find when those sessions are happening and sign up for them. But I think there's a lot of stuff that goes on across our institutions that reflects what the residents and the faculty are involved in, and as a result reflects the culture of the program, so that students can get more acquainted with that. There was a second question that was embedded in there. I think I might have missed that.
Just how do you filter out bad information, and also, I guess even to add to this, reaching out directly, who should you reach out to? Should you reach out to a program director or other faculty or residents, and how do you go about doing so?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're right. Like, social media can be pretty dangerous, and I think for any institution, it's kind of like any product review. And like, you know, if you get some, when people buy things and they go wrong, they're the people who are much more likely to put something on the web. And so I think actually for myself, going to the source is probably more informative. And so reaching out to the program directors to ask questions. Our residents actually curate an Instagram account. And so I think that's a source. It's on social media, but at least it's coming from the institution. And so, you know, it's real. And so I would point to actually going to individuals from the institution or medical students who've been at the institution, so they actually have a firsthand account of what the programs are like.
Great, thank you. And Amy, one of the things that I often hear concerns about from students, especially because we don't have the visiting clerkship program, is how do students express genuine interest in a program if there aren't ties from that program, be it there haven't been trainees that have come from that medical school to go to that residency program, or very few people from that medical school just apply to the Northeast in general, or to Harvard in general. And so students are often concerned because they use those away rotations as a way to express their interest. Can you talk about the need for those ties, and if that is or is not important?
I think it goes back to the thing I said at the beginning, which is, really focusing on a fair process for all students, even those that might not have ties or mentors or networks. And that's going to be, for us at least, really, really important to make sure that we are reviewing all students, whether they've been knowing that nobody actually has been able to visit. However, I guess in answer to the question of what students should do who would want to express their interest. I think one of the most effective ways to express interest is through a mentor. So that mentor doesn't necessarily need to know somebody at our program, but I think mentors can be very helpful in reaching out on behalf of students in a meaningful way. It's very tough, you know, honestly, from a program director's standpoint, to get direct emails from students and know how to react to them or filter them, because it's tough, as I feel students might be saying the same email to 30 different programs, and from their side, they're trying to get a residency program and they're feeling stressed, so they're sending out emails. So the genuine interest can be tough to tell as a program director. And that's when I might consider, if the student has a mentor that could reach out on their behalf, that sometimes that is a more effective tool. And then I would go back to connecting, if there's any way to connect with faculty or residents at the program of interest, not just the program director, that can be another wonderful way to show genuine interest in the program. So not everybody can do that, and that's okay. And that's where a mentor can be very useful.
And just to make sure we really emphasize a point that Dr. Stagg just dropped, is to make sure that you aren't shotgun emailing 30 programs with the exact same email. Cultivate a list based off of the recommendations on what that Dr. Stagg gave you about what programs you're interested in and why. And then reach out to a select few of those programs, because it looks bad when you send the same email that's very generic to so many programs, and it starts to come out as feeling false and ingenuine in this process. So I want to switch to another topic. And students had their third years interrupted by COVID-19. Many students were on rotations and were pulled off. Some institutions are just now letting students back onto the wards. Huma, how are residency programs going to evaluate students whose clinical time was interrupted by COVID-19?
Again, I think the theme of this year is going to be flexibility. And so we understand and are completely aware that your letters may not come from your OB rotations. You know, you may not have 4 out of 4 letters from OB, and that's okay. I think what's most important is getting strong letters of recommendation from people who know you well, even if that's not from your OB rotation because you didn't get to it. If it's from your medicine clerkship and you became, you know, very close with one of the medicine attendings and they know you well, I think that's absolutely fine. We know that this year has been incredibly disruptive, and that what's most important is finding a letter writer who can highlight your abilities. And we know that that's going to carry through, whether you did that in medicine or you did that in OB, that's going to remain true no matter what rotation you get the letter from. So again, I think we're going to be very flexible, we're going to be very understanding, and there's not going to be an expectation that you must have a certain number of letters from OB. And I don't think any of us would be surprised if there were, you know, maybe 1 or 0 letters from OB, considering what the third year looked like for a person. So I think getting a strong letter from somebody who knows you well and who can attest to your abilities on the wards is going to be more important than getting a specialty specific letter.
Great, thank you. And we're going to talk a little bit more about letters of recommendation going forward. But Adeline, just again, schedules are off, rotations have been shortened, and some students may not have been able to get to a sub-I, but they're preparing to apply. Is there anything students should be doing in order to ensure that they have the right rotations or the right experiences listed in their ERAS applications before they hit the submit button on their application?
You know, I think I'll definitely defer to Dr. Stagg about if there are any specific details on specific courses that need to be done. I will say that we know that students that are joining our program come from a wide variety of experiences, and across different medical schools, students have opportunities to engage in clinical care to very different degrees in what they are able to do, especially procedurally, given that this is a procedure-based specialty. And so definitely as faculty, as we're receiving those students, we understand that. And as Dr. Farid alluded to, there's a lot of flexibility, and we meet students where they are, even if that means that they've never seen a procedure before or never done a procedure before. We take them through from step one to get them all the way through. So I don't think students should feel that they need to come to the residency with a certain level of procedural experience that they need to have before joining. And Amy, I don't know if you have anything to add to that about the ERAS specifically.
Yeah. So just to kind of answer some of the questions that Dr. Farid and Dr. Boatin are talking about, first of all, what I would say about clinical rotations, when OBGYN residency program directors are looking at core clinical rotations, they focus on OBGYN, medicine, and surgery. We understand, that some of these core rotations may have been interrupted, but if you want to kind of know what to prioritize, I would say those are the 3 core clinical rotations that residencies will look at the most. In terms of kind of looking more at sub-Is, I think more than anything, I feel for students on this side of things, because I feel that sub-Is are not something when I'm reviewing students, it's a little bit helpful to kind of see how they might have done on a sub-I, but I think more for the student's sake than for my sake. So the sub-Is are a great way for students to really affirm the specialty they want to go into, create relationships with mentors and get to do projects. But again, from my standpoint, if a student hasn't done a sub-I, I would completely understand. And if I were thinking about giving advice about applying, I would focus first on the core rotations, if at all possible, to get those done. As I said, medicine, surgery, and OBGYN.
Right. And Amy, anything you would like to add about letters of recommendation? And I think there's a concern that students may not have enough letters from OBGYN. Huma already mentioned that you're expecting that you're going to see more letters from either medicine attendings or surgery attendings, or someone that just knows the student well. And so any other thoughts about letters of recommendation? And then also the importance of having a chair's letter as a part of your application versus someone else from the OBGYN residency?
Yeah. Chair versus a faculty member, an OBGYN faculty, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I think some of the traditions we've had in the past years will not be there, in the sense that in the past it's been very traditional for students to have a chair, a recommendation letter, and then the majority of their other letters be OBGYN, with maybe one non-OBGYN if you had done research outside of OBGYN, or if you had a special relationship with some other mentor on another rotation. I think this year, what I would focus on, if I were to say some of the top letters, if you had a choice, number 1 would be to reflect what Dr. Farid said, which is somebody who knows you well and has seen you perform in a clinical environment. Number 2, I would say that if you can get an OBGYN letter, that would be wonderful, but not 100% expected. And then I would just reflect back on those clinical rotations that OBGYN residency program directors tend to focus on, and that would be medicine and surgery. And the other one that's great is a family medicine. If you have a family medicine rotation, those are also very useful. You get a lot of OBGYN experience. You get a lot of women's health experiences on family medicine. So again, this doesn't mean you have to do these things, but if you ask me how to prioritize, that's how I would prioritize. Number 1, somebody who knows you well. Number 2, if you have the possibility of an OBGYN. And number 3, any of these rotations that also kind of some of the clinical experiences are very relevant to OBGYN.
And thank you for that. Huma, I have a question for you about personal statements. What should students be thinking about when they're crafting their personal statement? One thing that I'm concerned about is that we're going to see a flood of personal statements that center around COVID. And is that something that you're interested in reading? How do you assess students based off of their personal statements, and how much should students include a conversation around COVID or not include it at all?
Mhm. So I think that the best advice that I can give is that people should be as genuine as possible in their personal statements. I do read each and every single personal statement for the residency candidates that I review, and I remember the ones that are very genuine and well written. So I think it should be genuine, well written. It should showcase why you chose OB, what drew you to the field, and where you see yourself going in the future. I think you don't necessarily need to include anything about COVID unless you have a particularly meaningful patient encounter or something that's particularly relevant that forced you to maybe rethink your decision to apply, or something that impacted you in a very meaningful way. I think that COVID has disrupted all of our lives and has impacted all of us. So I think writing about it at length is not needed, but writing about something that's been meaningful and relevant to your choice in your career and to your decision to go into OBGYN is the most important thing. It should be well written, and just take a look at it, make sure that there's no errors, no spelling mistakes, things like that. But I think being your genuine self and really describing why you love OB and why you chose to apply is going to be the most important thing.
Great, thank you. And Adeline, we're talking about a number of things that are happening for students when it comes to their application. One key component of that is their step 1 scores. Another key component is those core clerkships that Amy was just talking about. Not everybody has their best days on when they take their step 1, or they have a poor rotation. Any thoughts on what students can do to round out their application if they have a weaker step 1 score, or they didn't do so great on a core clerkship during 3rd year?
Yeah, I'll say, as I look at a candidate for residency, it's sort of looking at the whole picture, and not really focusing on one element of things. So I definitely don't look at any applications for people that I'm about to interview and look at the step 1 score and say, oh, well, then if that was poor, like discount everything else. And so, really in residency program, we're, individuals who are driven, motivated, take initiative, and in whatever area of experience or whatever that student might find passionate is what we're looking to see. So there's not one particular thing that we focus on. It's really the rounded picture. So I'd say if step 1 wasn't a strength, then what are the other strengths that you have in your experience in medical school, or perhaps even prior to medical school, that you can highlight in your application? If one core clerkship wasn't a strength, what are some of the other core clerkships that you've done, or other clerkships where you did excel that you can show that you have those strengths as a clinician? So it's not really just about one particular area, but really the entire experience that the students have.
Great, thank you. And Huma, as we're talking about the disruptions related to COVID. Some students haven't been able to take step 2 CK prior to their application. Should that be something that students consider? Should they be trying to find a space so they can get that exam taken, or should that just be something that they expect as par for the course for a number of students? And how are you going to approach step 2 CK?
Again, we're being flexible with pretty much everything. I think if students can easily find a way to take step 2, I think it's very reasonable to do so prior to applying. If they cannot, or if it's too stressful, or if it's impossible, I'd say don't pursue it. But if you can, I think that'd be great. In terms of the steps, what we really, there's, again, like Dr. Boatin was saying, there's no cutoff that we have. There's no step score that we look at and we say, oh yeah, we'd never interview that person. We're looking at the whole picture. What we really want to see is, are you going to pass the boards? That's what we really ultimately want to know. Will you take a test well enough that you can pass the boards? And I think the vast majority of applicants do, right? Like they do fine on the steps and they're able to pass the boards. And that's what we really value. And that's what we want to see, that your ability to take a test is not about getting a perfect score on step 1 or step 2, but rather just that you can do well enough to pass. And so if you have not been able to take step 2, I think we're all going to be very understanding of the fact that this is not been possible because of a pandemic, and that we're going to be very flexible. If you have the opportunity to take it, great, go ahead, but I would not stress about not being able to take it. We're not going to treat people who've taken it versus people who haven't any differently.
And going a little bit off script, and I want to come to you, Amy, on this question. There's a lot of conversation in the Q&A. Multiple students are asking about their clerkship switching from a grade to pass-fail. And how will you look at those changes in grading from institutions? And is that going to matter in your assessment of students?
There are a lot of medical schools that are pass-fail, and so we're very used to reviewing applications without grades. The way I really focus on applications is when we look at those core rotations that are important to review in OBGYN, especially our dean's letters can be very useful in bringing the comments from those rotations together and really helping us understand, using, you know, kind of language to say, how did somebody do on that rotation? And I have found reviewing the comments that the dean's letter brings together very useful in reviewing students who are in a pass-fail institution. And you know, many medical students already are. So the fact that some are getting converted to that, I think it will make no difference.
Great, thank you. Adeline, want to switch and talk about the interview process. What is your residency doing to prepare for virtual interviews?
I'm actually going to have that Amy answer that question.
Okay.
And I'll take another.
Yes. Yeah. So how are we preparing, or how are we advising students to prepare?
No, I want to hear how your residency program is preparing. How are you preparing your faculty? What are you doing to make sure that you all are best prepared for this new process?
We're in a very, I mean, we're thinking about a lot of different things, and our national organizations are really helping us, as Dr. Farid pointed out before with the webinars. We're also in a very lucky position that all of our fellowships are currently in the midst of virtual interviews, and those are going to continue through the summer. One of our faculty so the earliest subspecialty of OBGYN to interview was urogynecology, and they went through virtual interviews in late April, early May. And so she is giving a talk on best practices for Zoom interviews. So we are working together as a group to understand what are some of the best practices, as well as using our national organizations. And I would also advise students that APGO, APGO, is a wonderful website for students, and is going to have a lot of information to help them with this process and with interviews.
Great.
I'll just add to that, this is Adeline, that you know, we know that any change in any program can affect how diversity and inclusion gets incorporated, and that's something that both on our faculty diversity and inclusion committee and on the resident diversity and inclusion committee, we're taking very seriously, and are proactively discussing and thinking about the different ways that this might get manifested with this change in the system. And so I can't say that we have our answers yet, but it's something that we're definitely addressing to make sure that we think about it and actively shape things so that we have the most diverse pool of candidates that we can interview.
Perfect. And Huma, as we are talking to our students and they're getting excited about this virtual interview process, any thoughts of what students can do to best prepare for that?
So as Dr. Stagg mentioned, APGO-CREOG, which is the Association of Professors of Gynecology and Obstetrics, has a whole page dedicated to virtual interviewing tips and FAQs. So if you look at the Right Residency, Right Program Ready Now page, you'll find that there are tips for students on how to interview virtually. The departments of surgery have been doing virtual interviewing, and the MGH just published a paper. One of the general surgery residents, Dr. Sophia McKinley, just published a paper in the Annals of Surgery, identifying best tips for virtual interviewing. It's very thorough, it's very good, and I would recommend that everybody look that up. It's available for free, I believe, under the COVID-19 page on the Annals of Surgery. And so there are definitely best practices out there, both for OBGYN, from surgery, that people should review prior to doing interviews. And some of it is very practical, right? Like find a comfortable spot where you're not going to have interruptions. Make sure that you are adequately hydrated. And some of it is much more practical, how to deal with questions that you may be asked and how to best get a sense of the department and the institution when you're actually not physically there. So I would say that there are definitely more resources out there now than there were when COVID all began, and utilizing those resources is going to be really key.
And one thing I'll just add to that is one of the things that we're going to do as part of our Vision and Clerkship program in this webinar series is we're going to have a discussion around interviews coming up, and hopefully that'll give some participants, regardless of the specialty that they're applying into, a little bit of tips, advice on how to make sure that you all perform best during these virtual interviews. Amy, I have a question for you, and it's I guess it's a multi-part question. Can you talk about communication with residency programs after ERAS is submitted? Not trying to get information about a program beforehand. Maybe a student gets waitlisted or they don't get offered an interview. Should students reach out to programs? And then also after the interview, should students reach out and have communication with programs after the interview?
Yeah, these are great questions. So just a reminder, and maybe students are learning or already know, but OBGYN has a very set kind of deadlines and practices around this that programs and students are being asked to follow. So there's a November 1st application deadline for all OBGYN residency programs. There are 2 days that we are releasing interviews, November 10th and 17th. And then the last date that you need to let students know whether where they stand is December 23rd. And so when we went through this last year for the first time, where we had set dates where we released interview offers, then as for our program, as soon as we kind of made sure that, you know, we had the right number of students that had said yes, then we told all of the other students, you know, that they were not going to get an interview. And we did use a wait list, but then as soon as we were done using that wait list, we let them know. So just keep in mind that residency programs are being held to this standard, and the students are being asked to understand that these are the dates. So what I would say about communication is that if you did not receive an interview on these dates, and you can get on the residency website, most residency websites are telling you we're following these practices, then it is very unlikely that any communication you'll have with a program will result in an interview. I would say if you're on a wait list, that is a time that you could consider communicating with a program you're very interested in. And I think this goes back to something Dr. Landry pointed out, which is, you know, when you're genuinely interested in a program, you get waitlisted a program, it was one of your top programs that you feel like you would be very successful at, you would be very happy to be there. There's some great reasons that you would want to go to that program, and that you make sure either you or your mentor sends a message that explains your interest and why, so it doesn't feel like a form letter.
Great.
Now, you did talk about post-interview communication, and one thing residency programs are really being asked to do is be very clear about post-interview communication. So it's very individual to the program what they would wish, and what I would say is that if you're very interested in a program, continued communication with the people that you interviewed with, or somebody you connected with at the program, is actually a great way to show interest. Again, just honestly, residency program directors receive a huge number of messages and emails, and they can be very difficult to interpret. And so another way to consider would be to somebody you connected with on your interview day, reaching out to them.
Great, thank you for that. I just want to go a little bit off script because there's a couple good questions coming in from our audience. And there's a number of questions that are where students are interested in what types of fellowships do residents go into afterwards? How is that, how are the trainees mentored through that process? Are there other opportunities for learning, including MPHs? And so maybe I'll go to Huma and then to Amy. Can you just talk about opportunities for growth in the profession of obstetrics and gynecology during residency and helping your trainees define their path in their career?
Yeah, so we have 6 residents per year. Our residents are able to do 2 electives in their residency. One is a PGY2 and one is a PGY3. Those electives are opportunities for them to perform research, to connect with a mentor, to go to Botswana. We have a very strong partnership with one of our faculty, an OBGYN faculty, who is actually full-time in Botswana. And before COVID, there were about, I'd say probably anywhere between 4 to 6 residents per year going to Botswana to learn and operate and educate there. And so she was very involved in mentoring the residents. We have a pretty robust global health program with one of our faculty in Ethiopia and in France, and another one doing community and global health work here in Boston. And so we have opportunities for our residents to work in any of these sites, and obviously prior to COVID. And we also have opportunities for them to do research. Every resident who comes in is assigned a mentor. And about 6 months into intern year, we sort of check in with you and say, we paired you with your mentor. How's this mentoring working out? Are you still interested in the same things? Do you need a new mentor? And we do that check-in twice in the first year and then annually thereafter. Our residents do go into all fellowships. We've had great success in matching our residents where they want to be. We've had most recently this class matched into REI at Cornell, MFM here at BI, and we've also had people match into sort of non-traditional tracks. For example, the Commonwealth Fund, which is a fellowship focused on health disparities. One of our residents was extremely interested in doing research on health disparities, maternal mortality, and was very successful in matching with this fellowship here in Boston. We do have a very strong generalist program. So about, I would say probably half of our residents any given year do go into general obstetrics and gynecology. I think that the program does an excellent job training the residents to be proficient and essentially to operate independently upon graduation. And so people have gone out into the community, people have stayed at the BI, people have gone to other states to be generalist OBGYNs, and they feel very well trained to be a generalist after this residency program.
Great. And Amy, anything you want to add about your program?
Yeah, I would say, we are 44-person residency, 11 per class. And I would say traditional fellowships, about 70% of our residents go into traditional fellowships. And, we have a very high success rate in matching in traditional fellowships. And very similarly, we have a mentoring program. Very similarly, we have elective time where you can do global health, you can do research. We had 2 residents that were going to the Indian Health Service, so lots of different time to explore interests. You mentioned MPH. I would say there's probably not an OBGYN program in the country that could support an MPH while in residency, just based on all the clinical work that is needed during residency and what's expected in order to graduate. But certainly there is bits of time to explore different interests, and definitely we have a lot of opportunities to explore different types of kind of professions post-residency to sort of consider and help support our residents to do different things. I think that's about it.
Wonderful. And Adeline, maybe a little bit more specific question, but There are some individuals who are going to be couples matching. Any thoughts about how the applicants can best navigate this space? I think you're on mute.
Yeah, you know, I did not couples match, so I can't say I have a lot of experience with that outside of COVID. I'd be curious if Amy and Huma have any insight, whether that from the APCO, CREOG, or ACGME, whether the process is changing for couples matching. I think with couples matching, it takes a lot of discussion, obviously, within the couple to try and accommodate what's going to fit for both individuals in terms of the programs. And I think this is where some, you know, not perhaps being able to do a sub-I or get more direct experience might make things a little bit more challenging. And so I think for students in that situation, trying to leverage some of the other resources that we've talked about in terms of trying to get to know institutions and the culture of the institutions for both specialties that the couples might be interested in will be really important, because I think overall with residency interviewing, it's all about fit. And so when it comes to couples matching, then you're trying to fit across 4 different people or 2 people in 2 institutions potentially, and or multiple institutions in a one particular geographic area. And so it's really a matter of trying to gather as much information as possible to help identify what will be the best fit for that couple.
Great, thank you. I'll wrap up with our program directors with one other question, and it is related to COVID. As you think about your residents and how they performed during this pandemic, is there anything that you learned about the residents that are a part of your program and how they responded to our pandemic that we're facing? And then also, how has your institution gone about supporting trainees during this turbulent time? And I'll go first to you, Amy, and then to you, Huma.
So I think to answer your question about learning about my residents, pretty early on, I received a message from the ACGME, which is who accredits our residency, saying, you know, if this is a year you don't feel like you can graduate your residents because you're not sure if you've seen enough from them, you know, it's okay to do that. And the first thing I thought was, you know what, I've never been more sure that my residents are ready to graduate and ready to be leaders and ready to be fellows. So I think what COVID did for me and looking at my residents is it created a true test for all of us in terms of our flexibility, our inner strength, seeing my residents advocate for their patients, and seeing them care for patients in these pretty stressful times was really, really heartwarming in a way. It was the positive out of COVID to really see how people came together and supported each other and helped each other through times that were extremely stressful. So in some ways, I feel like that we all got a lot closer. And the residents were really able to show me just how strong they are and how patient care is their #1 goal, and taking care of each other. In terms of, I think you had a second part of this question, which is more like going
what has the institution done to support your
training? Yes, thank you. So, you know, I think I mostly interacted with the quote unquote institution in terms of supporting our residents. I think that the main different ways that our institution supported us was through the GME and just really helping residency program directors kind of help their residents during this time. I think that the hospitals did their best to support residents, doctors, nurses, all of the staff that's here to try to help us feel safe as much as we could to protect ourselves and have everything that we needed to take care of patients, but also really encourage us to encourage our residents to take a break when they needed to, understanding that the work was hard.
Wonderful. Dr. Farid?
So I think that what COVID showed me about our residents was that they were immensely flexible and really dedicated to patient care and very hardworking. The schedule for typically we have a block schedule. It's set a year in advance. Everybody goes through an OB block, a GYN block, a family planning block. You have all these different blocks that you look forward to because you learn slightly different things on each block. And we had to change that about 3 times when COVID began, just because there was so much uncertainty. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how long the pandemic and the lockdown would last. And so the residents were continually, schedules changed almost on a weekly basis for a couple of weeks, and they were flexible and gracious about the changes and really just showed up to work with a smile on their face, even though things were so challenging. In the beginning of the pandemic, we really, given that there was very little data and that there was concern about possible shortages of PPE, we actually did not have our residents involved in taking care of COVID positive patients until there were protocols in place and until we had adequate PPE and could confirm exactly how to don and doff all the PPE. And so once we had that, we had all the residents do training, reading through emails that we'd sent and watching videos of how to appropriately don and doff. And that's when we allowed them to become involved in the care of COVID positive patients. And that gap actually allowed the faculty to learn about the disease and then be able to teach the residents rather than throwing the residents and the faculty in together, sort of like the blind leading the blind. And the institution was very supportive of that decision, as were the faculty in our department. We also acknowledged that this was an incredibly stressful time. So one of our faculty who's very interested in wellness actually did a couple of wellness sessions. I think at one point it was weekly for the residents that were optional, but that the residents could join in on. At the beginning of the pandemic, we also organized almost weekly town halls with the program directors and all of the residents to answer questions, because there was so much uncertainty about when is the schedule going to go back to normal, when are we going to be able to be back in the operating rooms. And so we had weekly town halls to discuss this with the residents and answer any and all questions. And so I feel that, looking at the positives as Dr. Stagg looked at, it's brought us together. We've seen how hard the residents worked and appreciated every moment that they put into patient care, knowing that they were giving up so much of their free time in this extraordinary time.
Great, thank you. And so I just want to wrap up this portion of our program by saying thank you to Drs. Boatin, Dr. Farid, and Dr. Stagg for joining us, representing the programs from the attending and program director side. And then next I want to bring in a couple of residents who have joined us as well to answer a few questions. And so as we get the slides up for their introduction, first is, go back one. Dr. Daniela Cordero. She is a PGY2 resident in the OBGYN program at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. And next is Dr. Brandon Weeks, who is also a PGY2 at the combined Brigham and Women's and MGH residency program. And so I want to go to you, Brandon, first. And if you could just talk about the culture of your program and how it's different to other residency programs that you considered when you were looking in this application phase a few years ago.
I just want to first start off by saying thank you for arranging all of this. I think this is a very challenging time for both programs, but particularly for students who are approaching a application season, which is already extraordinarily stressful with having essentially not done this before. And so, we really understand both here, I think, and both all across the country that we're going to be very flexible with what's happening this year. This is a learning process for both us as programs and for you as students. And so, I think this is an incredible opportunity to showcase or be flexible about how we showcase our programs. So about our program, I would say something that Dr. Boatin, who interviewed me actually, had mentioned was that, we are we're not just a large program, but we have people with a great diversity of interests. And I think this environment is one in which if you come in with an interest, there is someone who will shepherd you through. But because it is a large program, it does require a little bit more initiative from your part. And I think it really fits with people in this program because they come here and they say, okay, I know I want to do this. Now, mind you, they might change their mind and say, come in as future gynecologic oncologists, and 4 years later, they're going to be, you know, a generalist in Arizona. But that sort of points to how this program and this culture says that, okay, you know, whatever you want to do, we're going to help you get there. If you want to do this in your first year, great. If you change your mind in your second year, also great. You know, one of our rising chiefs came in absolutely certain she was going to do gynonc, and she is absolutely going to be doing reproductive endocrinology. And that was a change that was unexpected, but accepted by everyone. And, you know, she felt like she might have been a little late in the process. She had, you know, done this since she was here from day one, but that wasn't a problem. People just said, okay, well, this is what you want to do now, so we're going to help you get there. And I think that represents the kind of program we are. And again, we do match people into the traditional fellowships, but also, you know, people are able to do things that are different, that maybe don't fall under the perfect, you know, sort of big four fellowships. Some people I know want to have a practice that's very heavy in family planning, but they might feel like, okay, well, do I really want to go into a family planning fellowship? And so there's this understanding that there are many different ways to approach your career. And I think that points back to something that Dr. Stagg said, which was that you need to first think about what you want to do and where you see yourself in 10 years and 15 years, because you need to look at residency not as the end goal, but as the thing that will launch you to where you want to be. And when you think about how to stand out, it is already done by what you have done in medical school. Like no grade, no step score is going to represent someone writing on a letter of recommendation saying this is the best medical student I've ever worked with in my 15 years of being a faculty, and this is why. No step 2 CK is going to point out a dean's letter that says, you know, this student has organized over, you know, 80 faculty across 9 institutions to, you know, research on hundreds of thousands of clinical trials across the country. That is something that is never going to be captured in a 3-digit score or in a you know, high pass or whatnot. And I think that the people who are passionate about whatever they were doing before, that shows up in those letters, that shows up in those accomplishments, that shows up in the change that they have affected before they even walk in here. I don't think and I think, I don't want to speak for BI, but I think that they would share the same sentiment. We don't create leaders. People who come here are already leaders. We merely help them lead into whatever way they want to. And I think that is the culture here that encourages the leaders that come here to really affect change once they leave.
Thank you for that, Brandon. I actually feel like I may need to reapply for residency and go to OBGYN residency based on.
I mean, hey, we'll take everyone who wants to do this.
Daniela, I want to offer you the same space and opportunity to talk about the culture of your program and how you feel it was different than the other places that you applied to, and really what made you decide that this is the place you wanted to be.
Absolutely. First, obviously, we want to echo what everyone has said, and thank you for putting all of this together in the first place. But I guess for BI, definitely a lot of what Brandon already said. I would say I feel the same as far as like, we'll get you wherever you want to be in the long term, especially if you come here with a certain goal in mind, even if that changes. I would say I would feel similarly about BI. I think for me, something that really attracted me to Beth Israel in the first place was really this community hospital feel integrated with an academic medical center. We are fairly small. I think we're pretty much the average size for an OBGYN residency. But I think we really have, if you ask any resident to describe a residency, they would say the word family. Feel like a very strong family community that we have here within Beth Israel. Another thing that makes it really interesting is that there's really no separation between what it means to be have a public insurance versus a private insurance. You as a resident here will see everyone and all of the patients, and we're never thinking about the insurance that patients have as far as like the type of care that they can receive. One of the examples of that is that we share the same space that attendings do when we see our patients. We're exactly in the same clinical center, no matter what, which I know is different in different places that I interviewed at. I know that there was the residency clinic that was in a very different location that from the patients that the attendings were seeing. So that to me is something that I definitely like enjoyed about BI and was looking forward to work with. Another is the possibility to not only work in the hospital setting as far as like getting to do your continuity clinic here, but it's the opportunity to actually go into the community health centers that are affiliated with our hospital to really go down to the community and be able to serve those populations directly. So I myself, like I will be doing that starting my second year at DMIC Healthcare Center, which primarily serves a Spanish-speaking population. What else? The other thing actually was seeing the diversity both expressed in the residents that we have here, but also in the leadership and faculty. I think we have a huge issue in medicine itself, and it's not alone for OBGYN, but it's really not getting to see representation of the populations that we take care of, but also like the populations, the people that we are ourselves. I think this was the first place in which I ever saw like a Latina woman in a position of power, like Dr. Mendiola, who just stepped as to kind of take over as an overseer for all the fellowships and residencies here at BI, was the first woman who was from a Latina like descent that I have experience in my medical training to be in a position of power, which was really inspiring. So it's both that representation in residents and in faculty, and I'll keep it there because I'm sure I could go on forever. But
no, I think it's great what you all are saying, because I think it's a true representation of identifying a program that fits you and is going to allow you the space and the place to grow. So I thank you for sharing, and I think you all are both great individuals to represent your program, and you're not overselling it, you're just being honest, and that's appreciated. Danielle, I want to stick with you and just briefly talk about COVID-19 and your experiences as a resident and how it's impacted your training and what you've learned from this pandemic.
Yeah, I would say the word of the day when it comes to COVID-19 is definitely flexibility. It has taken a lot of flexibility to just not only adjust to quick changes in schedule, but also the COVID policies changed hour by hour, day by day. So we're constantly having to learn something new as things develop throughout the course of the pandemic. The clinical volume was very different when elective cases got canceled and only urgent cases were going on, and we had to adjust our training. So we definitely saw different volumes that now is very much picking up now that elective cases are coming back into our schedules. And I'd say one of the biggest changes that I've seen clinically has been the uprising of telehealth. Before this was just never part of our practice, and now it's a completely change in the model in which we're able to provide not only prenatal care, but also do gyn-onc clinics. I'm able to call patients, get their entire history presented to my attending, and then we both call the patient back and we're able to kind of review the plan that I have made with the patient, and they're able to just kind of finish up that clinical encounter in preparation for the gyn-onc surgery. So it was pretty amazing to kind of see how I think medicine tends to be pretty slow when it comes to incorporated changes, especially like up to date and with the use of technology. And it was pretty amazing to see how quickly we adapted only in a few months. It was something that I didn't expect to see happen. So it was reassuring to know that even within sometimes what it feels like an old system that can be rapid change was great to see.
Great. Brandon, I want to go to you and talk to you about Boston. What have you learned about the city of Boston? How have you adjusted to being here? And for those who don't have ties to Boston, what are your thoughts about, living in this city?
So I'm from very far away. I'm from LA. And so you can't think of as physically or culturally as different as Boston. And you know, I'm going to sort of name the elephant in the room, which is, I think, particularly as a Black person, there is a reputation about Boston that precedes itself, and it's not always good. And I think that while there are some aspects of Boston that can reflect that, certainly it is not reflected in my experience as a resident. And so Boston, one, is a beautiful city. Two, it's an incredibly educated city. And three, it's actually a very small and accessible place, which is pretty important as a resident, because you just don't have time to, you know, be in kind of like what I grew up in, which is LA traffic, where you're driving, you know, for 30 minutes to go 5 miles. And so it's really convenient to be able to say, for instance, because our program is a combined program, so we're both at Massachusetts General and Brigham and Women's, which are across town from each other, but across town is like, you know, 3.5, 4 miles. And so you can live by one and then commute to the other. And your commute being, you know, a 20-minute bike ride. Oh dear. And so, you know, people are really able to have a high quality of life here. I would say that echoing some of the comments made by Drs. Stagg and Dr. Boatin, and I'm sure, you know, that also echoing the comments by Dr. Farid, we have a very tight-knit diversity and inclusion organization. But we also have like a much more informal group. So, you know, there's this very large, for instance, Black doctor or Black residents of Boston WhatsApp, where we, you know, we always send each other events and concerts and things like that. And obviously in COVID times that has kind of tamped down. But, you know, sometimes, you know, we all get together on the, those Facebook Live concerts. And it's a way of building community, especially in, you know, these COVID times. Where even if you can't be physically proximate, you can definitely feel like you're still amongst a tribe. And so, you know, both that's amongst all of the residents across Boston, but also, you know, amongst the residents at both Brigham and MGH. Each of them have their own diversity apparatuses, and we're really able to connect through those. I think one thing you will not get over is Boston is real cold. Winter is real here. Is real. Like the snow comes. I mean, this past winter was fine, but having lived in the East Coast before, like winter is a thing. Like snow will come for you, and you will have to go to work. You still have to go to get into the hospital at 5 o'clock to, you know, round or to pre-round for gynoc rounds. And yeah, it might be a foot of snow outside, but you're just gonna have to figure that out. But it's okay. They make jackets here. They have all-wheel drive cars here. And they have snowplows here. So people who are from like the South or the West Coast, trust me, you will make it work. And I think Dr. Landry, having been from Alabama, I think, you know, you can speak, we survived.
Yeah. Yeah, you told that story as if you were a true California native moving to the frozen tundra of New England. So Daniela, I want to hear from you about your experiences in the mentorship you've received. We've talked a lot about the importance of that and programs helping us sort of find our career in our space in medicine. But can you just talk about the mentorship that you've received during your time that you've been here?
Yeah, I think like mentorship doesn't really just only start in residency. I think you're definitely, I'm sure that you have identified mentors as you have gone through not only high school, but medical school, college. And even if they're not really people that are coming from your field specifically, maybe people that are sharing your values and will support you. So kind of acknowledging that in residency, kind of just alluding to what Huma had said earlier, here at BI, they do pair you up with a mentor pretty early on within the first 6 months of starting, that are based on your interests. So either you identify an individual that you think would be a good mentor for you just based on what you want to do, or you can just list out the things that you're interested in, and they will find someone in the department that aligns with those interests. At the end of the year, you touch base again. Maybe your interests have changed. You have realized that now you wanted to do a completely different specialty after really having more experience in the difference of specialties in OBGYN. and you can change that or you can add to it. So I myself I'm very interested in doing this community health and like working with Spanish speaking populations. But I'm also have found a new interest for MFM. So there's those two hybrids, and now I'm able to touch base with my original mentor, and they're able to kind of create a matrix of what it means to have more than just one mentor. It's not about just finding this one individual that will be able to give you all the answers, but it's about identifying someone that aligns with you on your personal beliefs or the type of lifestyle you want to have outside of your home as far as when it comes to family. Is there someone that has good approach to wellness? Is there someone that cares about the same diversity values that you do, and they do that in the community, and someone clinically and within MFM? So I think it's really about identifying all those people as you're going through your residency, but I think it's definitely very helpful to kind of get started with someone, because it can be intimidating kind of walking up to somebody out of nowhere to kind of ask for mentorship.
Great, thank you. And just given the interest of time, I just want to just go and just ask both of you one question. And is there any piece of advice you have for students as they're going into this application season? Either something that you remembered, something that you wish someone would have told you, or something that you've experienced that's really helped shape your approach to your career currently. So any piece of advice that you have for students, and we'll go to you, Brandon, first, and then Daniela, you can answer that second.
I think that medical school and residency applications can encourage people or creates an environment where people feel the need to become what they think they should be, as opposed to being the star that they are in their own way. This is a, as Dr. Stagg mentioned, this is a 44-person residency, which means there are 11 new residents in each class. Those 11 residents are not similar, and that is intentional. I think that I would recommend that the applicants look back on their experiences, look back on what they have done with those experiences. So it's not enough to have gone through something. You need to have used that as fuel to drive you to do something, because we are a doing specialty. And showcase that. Again, we don't need you to be like everyone else. We don't want you to be like everyone else. This is a program, and I think I don't want to speak for Daniela and Dr. Farid at BI, but I would think that they would say the same thing. That these are programs that want to create leaders, and leaders are not cookie cutters of everyone else. And so I would really encourage people to look back into their history, back into what they've done, and also to look back to the people who have supported them, whether or not they are in OB-GYN or not. I would say that what ended up being my very best letter, and I only know this because it was commented a lot, was from a urologist, not from a OB-GYN. And so to really think about those aspects of your background, those aspects of your history that shine, and lead with that.
Great. And Daniela, we'll go to you to round it out.
Yeah, I have 3 short ones. Basically, the first one was going to be yourself, which I think Brandon already alluded to and said in way better words that I could ever do. So definitely agree with everything that Brandon said. The second 2 are just a little bit more practical. The second one, kind of referring back to what Dr. Stagg had mentioned, really prioritize what you need to be successful in your residency, and understanding your priorities prior to even really picking up programs. Just as an example, is it geographic? It doesn't mean that you need to be close to your family and that's going to limit the choices that you have. Is it you really need family planning practice and you really care about doing abortions, and therefore you really are interested only in RYAN programs? So really understanding what are your priorities and what you need to succeed in residency are crucial before you even start picking your programs. And lastly, I think this is the vicious cycles that I have seen in residency applications, is trying to apply to 1 billion programs. Something that I think the most helpful advice that I got when I was going through the process is just limit your programs to 25. Like, you don't really need, because I think it creates a cycle of people really not getting interviews to spots that other people really wouldn't have been interested in the first place. And it just creates this vicious cycle where you end up applying to 60, 100 programs, and I just don't think that's truly necessary, and you're going to drive yourself crazy trying to pick more than 30. So
great advice from both of you. And I want to say thank you to Dr. Weeks and Dr. Febres Cordero for this wonderful presentation. And thank you for giving that honest resident perspective and opinion to this time. I want to say thank you to all of our panelists. We have a very quick survey that we'd like to show. So if you all can take your time and just click on a couple quick questions, Ari, hopefully you can pull that up. In the meantime, we will continue to have these discussions. We are planning a conversation around careers in pediatrics for this upcoming July. I believe it's July 7th. And so if you have any colleagues who are interested in pediatrics, we also have a conversation towards the end of July about residency programs in psychiatry, which we have 5 of. That will be at the end of July, I believe July 29th. We will continue to host discussions. We're going to have a discussion around living in Boston, and Brandon and Daniela alluded to that a little bit in their discussion, but we're going to have a larger discussion about the culture and climate of Boston for prospective applicants. And we're also going to have a similar conversation around the interview process to make sure that all the students joining us are prepared for that. If you have questions for your program, the program directors or for the residents, we will post a slide with their contact information up. You can always reach back out to us through the Office for Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Partnership through our website for more contact information, as well as information about our upcoming events and the archived events. As I mentioned at the beginning, we will be showing this presentation. Hopefully by the end of the week, it'll be available through our website. If you have any questions, reach out to us. And we want to say thank you again to Fari and Mustafa, who's been running the show behind the scenes, to Dr. Reed for continuing to support the work of the Visiting Clerkship Program, and as well as all of our panelists. Thank you for joining us. And with that, I will bid you a good afternoon. Everyone, take care.